was competing as a black belt, I was very impatient, very rough for the athletes. I had to be tough to compete, to handle the training. And I brought that to my classes sometimes. I was rough with my students sometimes, I had no patience. I demand the best of them all the time. I could understand the failures from them. When I was a fighter, I want to be the best fighter possible. I tried to do the techniques the most perfect possible, and I was very demanding to my students, And now I older, I have more patience. I passed a lot of stuff in my life, ups and downs. And I hunger to make myself a better human being. And Jiu-Jitsu was the tool that I used. Keep trying to be a better human being, a better friend, a better husband, a better father. Realize a much better coach right now than I used to be. This patient that I had right now, if I was the same coach when I was a black belt, my students gonna benefit from there.
Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a living legend in Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. He's a 7th degree coral belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a veteran of the UFC and Pride, and he was also a former UFC middleweight champion. He's also a Jiu-Jitsu world champion and a Brazilian national absolute champion. He's also an ADCC medalist and the leader of Brazilian top team, where he teaches full-time in Rio de Janeiro. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to be joined for the second time on the podcast by one of my all-time favorites, Professor Murilo Bustamante. How are you today, Murilo?
Hello, Ryan. Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Of course, it's really a pleasure to have you back. Murilo, the last time you and I did an interview was 9 years ago, so it's been a long time. We have a lot of catching up to do. I saw you just a couple of years ago in Sao Paulo at BJJ Stars, but we didn't really get to, I got a picture with you, but we didn't really get to talk very much. So catch us up. What have you been doing in the last 9 years?
Teaching Jiu-Jitsu, teaching around, in Brazil, teaching in Brazilian top team schools around the world, in some academies that are not Brazilian top team as well. So I've been teaching Jiu-Jitsu and try to be in contact to people that, introduce Jiu-Jitsu for the most people possible, that I met in my way. Jiu-Jitsu is amazing sport, changing lives, a lot of benefits, especially for kids. Nowadays, I'm teaching more kids than adults classes. And so it's giving me a lot of pleasure, when I help people to get in Jiu-Jitsu, so people start, beginners, kids and adults. So they start to learn, and they start to like to play Jiu-Jitsu, So I used to say that the first big task for the coach is to help people to learn to like sparring, rolling. When the kids start rolling and they start to have fun rolling and sparring, that's, the harder task of the job is done. Because after that, when they have fun rolling and sparring, that's, the beginning of the journey, because then they can have fun playing Jiu-Jitsu, winning or losing. So when the kids start realizing that it's super fun, they playing, they bring their friends and families, and then the academy receive, my academy receiving families, parents, kids, so they bring cousins, because Jiu-Jitsu is a sport so nice, so they bring so many benefits to our lives that, I'm glad to help people to get in contact and start to like Jiu-Jitsu, use Jiu-Jitsu in their own lives. Jiu-Jitsu is a sport that It's not about only techniques to be a good fighter, but the values that you learn on the mat, the respect, discipline, self confidence, they learn how to be humble. And, the most important, for the kids and teenagers, they learn how to deal with the losses, So they learn how to leave how to let the ego outside the mat, So then it's when they grow in this important, this kind of lessons that come from the mat. So and then the first step is that the coach help them to like to roll, and the start is done, everything make it gonna be easier.
That's great. This is actually a great topic to dive into because since the last time you and I spoke, I've become a father of two. I got two kids now. My son just started jujitsu. He's only 3. But
Awesome.
he's loving it. He really, really loves it. And I love what you said about the idea of keeping it playful and making it fun and not making it too serious. Cause kids at their age, they just want to play and have fun.
Yes.
So I always try to, my kid's really into superheroes. So whenever we're training together, I'm a villain and he's usually like Batman or Spider-Man or somebody. And he doesn't realize we're fighting and we're playing out this story of bad guy versus good guy, but he's learning how to do single legs and get an arm bar and control mount and things like that. What are some ways you try to keep, especially for younger kids, keep things really fun so they're absorbing and having a good time?
Uh, it depends on the age,
Sure.
So younger, like 3, 4, 5, must be very ludic, like like playing. You teaching techniques, but you have, yourself. You help them to learn kind of specific moves that gonna help them. I like to bring some certain moves to make kind of make them work moves that they're gonna use during the fight, like playing, like kidding, but they're gonna help them to move into the fight. So when they practice in jiu-jitsu, so it must be ludic. Getting older, but since the beginning, it's very important to teach them the discipline and respect on the mats, because we live in after the pandemic time, kids change it for a reason, and I think kids are more aggressive now than before and more bullying happening nowadays. So, and then uh, teach them respect, discipline inside the mat. They get more self confidence and and they like themselves more. And the posture change. And when the kid change the posture, I mean, they get more self confident. They don't need to prove things, like they don't need to bully people, they don't need to, it ain't gonna be hard to bully them because they have the self-respect, so they don't let people doing something like tease them or bullying the bad way, like I mean, it's since the very young age, like since the beginning, like 3, 4, 5 years old, they learn that, and if they keep themselves on the mat training jiu-jitsu, uh, this kind of posture that they have is gonna be stronger, and you can see clearly a kid that is, practicing jiu-jitsu to self-confidence, they're self-confident because they know what they can then accomplish, and they behave change for good. So I have been seeing that on my classes with my kids, and it really changed lives, So talking about myself, I was a very shy kid, and with a low self confidence because of problems of my family, and jiu-jitsu really helped me to be a different person, more confident. Uh, So, and be able to deal with life easier.
That's excellent. Yeah, there's a few things you said there that really resonate with me. One is that I've also noticed that a lot of young people, young kids, have taken a real hit to their social skills due to what I believe is a couple things. I think it's also the lockdowns that we went through during COVID. For a lot of these kids, that was what would have been their normal exposure to social situations and other kids and learning how to interact with other people. And that got messed up really badly when everyone was forced to stay inside for a long time. Lots of schools were shut down, things like that. Secondly, I think leading up to the pandemic, kids in general these days seem to be mostly digital. They're online. I remember when
Yes.
I was a kid of the 90s, and man, my parents used to have to go look for us to make us come inside when it was getting dark. Like we didn't want to be inside. We didn't want to be on a screen. Because it was just a different generation. But now I look outside of a neighborhood, like an apartment complex. There's like no kids. There's like empty playgrounds, empty,
Yes.
even skate parks. You only see like one or two kids occasionally. And that's very different. So that's obviously had a big impact on how kids interact and then deal with things like bullying and dealing with confrontation. So I think jujitsu more than ever for young people is really, really needed.
Yes, you're 100% right. I'm father as well. My kid is 13 as a teenager. I started training when he was 3 years old. I put him to train with a friend of mine. And then later I started training him because I didn't want that he get confused the figure of the father and the coach. So then later I started to train him. But uh, talk about the screens, that's the biggest problem nowadays. All families have the same problem, but some families they don't care. They just don't want to. Some people they just don't want. They don't want to bother themselves having to discipline the kids to raise them well. So easier to give a screen, a cell phone, whatever, tablet, and let them play because they got quiet. But a lot of bad things on the internet nowadays. So everybody, bad people are internet. So pedophiles, so they get in contact because AI they can change faces and voices, and the kids they think they're interacting with the kid, but sometimes interacting with the adult, and that's it happens around the world. There is a series the name Adolescence that talks about that. The parents, I really recommend that for people that have kids, uh, because talk about this problem. The series, it's about the parents, they do the best they can, but they don't really get into what his kid are doing. They let the kid playing on the computer with no supervising. So they don't know what's going on in their lives, with the kid's life. So then there is a consequence, bad consequence in the end. Anyway, uh, saying that, man, is that it affects all families. It's a problem. That, I don't know because of pandemic time or because of the technology. So there is a limit that you can let the kids play, because if you let them do it, they're gonna stay in the comfort zone the whole day inside the house, eating and playing and watching TV. That's this generation. It's very much about that. So you have to push them away. You have to put. And jiu-jitsu is the perfect activity. So that's what I'm saying. When the coach help them to learn to like to row, to move. Then they like to be in the class. They're gonna feel that is good for them, and then it's a chance to let the screams away from them. So it's just benefits for the kids. These they have a teamwork on the class. So they learn values. They learn how to respect. So because teachers are having nowadays a nightmare on schools. Some kids they don't respect the teachers. They don't stop talking with the teach. start to explain something. So a lot of disrespect on the schools nowadays. But during the jiu-jitsu class, the kids he must obey the coach. If not, the coach won't handle, you know, because it's not about money. It's about you be there doing your thing, your job, the coach, to help the kids to learn jiu-jitsu. And I mean, the techniques is on the side. The most important is the kids know how to behave, how to respect, how to to have a social life with the kids around them. Respect the kids, respect the partners. You know, uh, so and yeah, for sure. After I have a kid, and after I had the kid, my I became a much better coach for kids than before because I could understand better how the kids behave, you know. So all the problems, the issues, and how to deal with them. But the figure, the I mean the importance of the professors, the coaches of jiu-jitsu nowadays is very, very high. I mean, they get a they can have a very good influence in the kids and teenagers' life. So it's very important that the professor, the masters, the coaches, whatever, they understand that the responsibility that they have to help. They can help really much help the kids. So that's why people realizing that all academies around the world are a pack of kids, all over. And the families realize, because I come from the time, because after the Vale Tudo in 1991, a lot of viewers, they don't even born at the time. So Jiu-Jitsu exploded in Brazil because it was broadcast on TV. There was a challenge between Jiu-Jitsu and Luta Livre. And I'm saying that because I lived this time of history in Jiu-Jitsu. And I fought this challenge. And after that, Jiu-Jitsu won the 3 fights. It would broadcast in the biggest company, TV in Brazil, and spread the word. And everybody want to play Jiu-Jitsu. In the other side, some players, some kids, some students, they start to mess around on the streets. And because of that, some parents, they didn't want to put the kids on the Jiu-Jitsu because the image of Jiu-Jitsu wasn't good at the time because some students doing messing around, because they were very self-confident because they realized that Jiu-Jitsu was so powerful. They didn't know that. They realized after the challenge that Jiu-Jitsu beat Luta Livre. And then it was very bad for people that were teaching, like me and other coaches. It was very hard to get kids on our academies because the parents didn't want to put the kids in the sport. It was on the news with people fighting on the street. But nowadays, the image of Jiu-Jitsu changed completely. People realize how good it is. Even the skills doesn't exist anymore, So we don't see people fighting on the street anymore using Jiu-Jitsu. The coaches are more, they understand, they concern better about the importance of the mission they have, So they give better advice, and I think they discipline better their students. So because of nowadays, you see guys like Carlos Slater, 11 times world champion surfing, saying that the first sport he's going to put his kids is Jiu-Jitsu, So I think all the society realized that Jiu-Jitsu, and I mean, martial arts in general, I'm a Jiu-Jitsu player, but I love martial arts in general. I practice many martial arts. I practice judo, boxing, wrestling. So I love martial arts, and I'm a lover of martial arts, and but I'm a jiu-jitsu player for my essence, but jiu-jitsu is perfect but it's more about the coach. The good coach can change the life, of a kid. So because you have in Brazil a lot of slums, a lot of poverty, some social projects are doing a great job inside these communities, bringing kids to sport and giving the opportunity for them to have a new life, because they can become a champion, or if not, they learn a job. After being a black belt, they can have their own school. And if you were this kind of students, if they have a good direction, good education on the mat, they can, like, uh, uh, how can I say, like, they're gonna keep doing in their school the same way. I mean, so they're gonna follow the path, the way they learn, and they're gonna be able to learn to teach more people, more kids, to bring more kids for the sport, and to introduce kids and let them use the benefits of jiu-jitsu to change their own lives.
You were talking about teaching your own son and how there was kind of the role you had to find the separation of being dad and also coach, and that's something I see a lot of black belts run into. And in my own story, so with my kid, I thought about being a dad years before I actually had kids. I was thinking about like my plans, like what things I plan to teach my kids and the types of values I wanted to instill in them. And one thing that I always struggled with a little bit was not wanting to force my kids into the things that I like. I didn't want to make my kids feel obligated to do something just because it was my passion. And so because of that, I was always hoping my kids would like jiu-jitsu and hoping they'd be interested, but not wanting to make it mandatory. By the time they were born, it became mandatory. And the reason is that I had the realization that all the reasons I do jiu-jitsu, for self-discipline, for learning how to problem solve, for learning how to work under pressure, for learning how to stay committed to something, self-defense ability, I realized, what kind of dad would I be if I'm not passing all these things on to my kids? These are like really, really important things that you should be passing on to your children for sure. And so now it's become something that my kids will do. They don't have to compete necessarily, but they do need to train and learn. I've seen that a lot of instructors in your position, for example, oftentimes will use other instructors to teach their kids jiu-jitsu. Have you found yourself doing that as well? Have you passed your son, for example, off to other instructors to learn jiu-jitsu, or have you focused mostly on just teaching your kid yourself?
At the beginning, I put him on of my friend's academy. He was 3 years old, to play judo because I didn't have kids classes on my academy at the time. And after that, I started to teaching. I back on the mat to teach kids because I realized I want to teach my kids. So I mean, I had classes, kids classes on my academy, but it wasn't me that was teaching; it was my team. And then I start to return on the mat to the mat to teach the kids, to realize that one day I'm gonna teach my kid, because it's from my point of view, it's amazing to be with my kid on the mat, living together. Is one more time I'll be together with him, to see him growing on a sport, in life as well, learning. So in my house, is jiu-jitsu is mandatory since very early. I let him know the benefits that jiu-jitsu. I talking to my son. I let him know that the benefit that jiu-jitsu brought a lot of benefits to my life, and it doesn't matter for me. I make clear for him, it doesn't matter for me if it's good or not. Jiu-jitsu is good. I mean, for in general, okay? It doesn't matter if the kid is good or not in jiu-jitsu. He doesn't need to be the best in class. But jiu-jitsu is going to be good for his life anyway. Is proved already,
100%.
So it just, like you said, I don't push kids to compete. Competition is very good, but it's not for everybody. And if they like to compete, you're going to give support. But it's not mandatory. The most important to be on the mat to learn the lessons. Competition is one step ahead. I mean, it's very good if the kids like to compete. If they want to compete, it's very good. It's gonna be even better. But it's not the most important. Most important is to roll and to learn how to win and lose, to deal with that. The kids, they have to learn how to deal with the losses. Competition is a level a little bit, next step, but because then the feelings are more is stronger feelings. Losing or winning is a stronger, is very good win. It's bad to lose, but then kids have to learn. But I don't push kids to compete. But if they feel like competing, I'm gonna give all support for them. You know. But the most important for me is the kids to be on the mat, training and having fun. And when I the coach, it happens to me. I have to push them away from the mat because they already roll. So it's a turn for another kids, because having many kids on my class, so not everybody can roll the same time. So, that is one time sparring for, and then they have to replace, so have to replace the kids on the mat. I mean, changing partners, So, but they want to be all time on the mat rolling. So then for me, I'm super glad to see that because they really want to roll. That's good, So I have a good feeling that the job is being well done, because everything that I speak to them, they learn. They listen because they want to learn, And I have a class with small kids really learning what I'm saying. I pass in the information. Sometimes they get a little bit distracted and have to bring them attention again. Hey, come on, come here, man. Where are you? Where are your mind? You're dividing. So come to earth. Let's gonna pay attention, And then I try to make them focus in something because it happens to this generation. It's very hard for them to focus something that's not games. Yeah. If you talk about games, they know everything. They're gonna speak to you all day. If you put a game on the screen, they be completely focused there, hypnotized. But in real life, sometimes they kind of get distracted pretty easy, So then in jiu-jitsu classes can help them to get the focus on something.
I think it's outstanding that you're this passionate about teaching the new generation, because there's a lot of people that have great success in a sport, and then once it's done for them, it's kind of done. They don't really feel the desire to bring in the next generation. So seeing someone at your level that's this passionate about bringing in the next generation of kids is outstanding. I really do commend you for that and appreciate it. Something else that happened in the last 9 years since you and I talked, when last time you and I spoke, you were still a 6th degree black belt. So you've become a coral belt now. Congratulations. That's huge. There's a question I oftentimes ask black belts on the show, and that's what's something that you learned as a black belt that you wish you knew when you were a white belt? But I'm going to change this question just a little bit for you. What do you think is something you've learned as a coral belt that you wish you knew as a new black belt?
Maybe realize better that I have a lot to learn, that learning, never stop. So it's, just getting older, you realize it clearly. I have a very good background on the sports of fights. I'm a black belt judo. I'm a coral belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm a former professional fighter, and I compete in high level my whole life. And even that, I still learning. So in life as well. So. Being a father changed me. Changed my behavior. I got my patience. When I was competing as a black belt, I was very patient. I was very rough for the athletes. I was tough. I had to be tough to compete, to handle the training, and I brought that to my classes. Sometimes I was rough with my students. Sometimes, I have no patience. I demand the best of them all the time. I could understand the failures from them, maybe, But now I older, I have more patience. I passed a lot of stuff in my life, ups and downs, and finally my life arrived. I can tell that I'm a very I mean, my life is going pretty well. I'm very happy with my life, with everything I accomplished, what I have. And so it's, as I was talking about, about the coach that they were competitors and they just follow their life. So being a competitor and competing high level, and you learn so much from my competition life and from the life in general, because I'm hunger to learn about I hunger to make myself a better human being, you know. And jiu-jitsu was the task that I used, it was the tool that I use, that helped me. And I keep trying to be a better human, a better friend, a better husband, a better father. So when I was a fighter, I want to be the best fighter possible. I tried to do the techniques the most perfect possible. And I was very demanding to my students, I still demanding for them. But what I ask my students is that they do the best they can, and I'm more about to understand the limits of them, because each kid they have their own limits. Some kids they can go further. The kid they're doing his best, but they don't go further at the time. Maybe later, because the time in life of kids is different. Sometimes they develop their skills a little bit later. So it's the task for the coach. I mean, to be a parent as well. Coaching my kid. So it kind of uh, what I charge of them, especially to my kid, that he does his best on the mat. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. Try to keep his focus and do his best. And it doesn't matter. The most important rolling, and try to do the best. So that's the most important. And I feel glad that I realize I'm much better coach right now than I used to be. And this patient that I had right now, if I was the same coach when I was a black belt, my students gonna have benefit from there, you know. So different times. So I'm getting older, getting wiser, 100%. If you don't get wiser, you don't pay attention to your own journey. You have to understand the journey of learning journey. And bring the best thing to your life. Realize when I realize easier when I make mistakes, when I'm wrong. And I can admit easier that I'm wrong, and I have more patience with my own failures nowadays, and it's easier for me to try to correct if I do something wrong in my way, like excuse, like I apologize. Apologize for people that sometimes I made a mistake, or if I roof, and try to correct the wrong ways that can happen in all lives. So I try to be more conscious about my own behavior.
This is something really interesting, actually, because over the years, I've been doing the podcast now for 10 years, and I've talked to countless world champions and the top of the sport. One thing I noticed consistently across all the very top athletes in the world is that they hold themselves to very strong personal standards. In order to reach the levels of a sport or an endeavor that you have to hold yourself to a very high personal standard. And I imagine that when you have that standard as just your default mode, seeing other people not meeting that standard to you can be frustrating, I'm sure. When you go from being a professional fighter and a successful world champion to then teaching people who want to do the same thing but are not reaching that same standard, I could see where that would be frustrating if you've programmed yourself to be at a certain level and a certain standard for yourself.
Yeah, for example, during the first years of Brazilian top team, I was the oldest on the mat. And sometimes I was the one that trained the most, and I couldn't handle, the athletes that got tired or give up the training. They didn't want to go so hard I was doing. And I kind of was very rough with them, you know. And but taking time, I realized that some people are not as smart, some people are not that tough, they're different, different people, they different skills. But the task of the coach is understand that and kind of push the student or the athlete for his own limits and realize where is this limit, because each student going to have a different limits, so if you push a kid at his limit is, for example, here, he's already there, you push him more, maybe going to be frustrated for you and for the kids. For example, just a good example, when I was starting to teach, I show a position, a technique, and my student couldn't do it. And I was there helping and trying to make them understand, but I couldn't do it anyway. And then I insisted with that and got frustrated because he couldn't do it. And he got frustrated because he couldn't do it. It is a wrong way. What I realized I used to do, instead to insist in the position that he couldn't do it, I changed for something that he could do it. Instead to insist to correct him in the position, I kind of changed the position for another position, closer possible what I'm showing, to make him doing something that he could do at the time, So, and then it changed a little bit the frustration for the coach, my frustration as a coach, and the frustration that the students had as a student, as I try to learn, and taking longer, I start to understand that, because the coach have to keep the student motivated, so, and later the student could learn the position we're trying to show him before, so it means that each person, they have their own time to do their own stuff, especially kids. Some kids, they develop the body and the mind faster. To be honest, I was a kid at the age of my son. I wasn't good at all in jiu-jitsu. I could play, but I only developed my potential was I was a teenager, like 16 years old, 17 years old. Then I kind of slowed, boom. I get in competitions and I kind of won like most of them, from blue belt to brown belt and black belt. Then I arrive in black belt, winning everything, and then start some new generation that start to give me a hard time. Then, but I was the older one, and but I only realized that later in my life, because at the beginning I was charging people to get the not the limits, but maybe my own limits. I wanted they reach my own limits. Sometimes it wasn't possible for them, So it's very very important for the coaches. They understand that the different skills possible to be developing each athlete, students, So it's some people, they're not too smart, but they can be very brave. So this is an important quality. So they can be a soldier in the front line that's going to be the best for the battle. But if you put him to plan the battle, because he's not too smart, he's going to make a mistake. So have to choose the perfect area to how to play with them, how to teach them, how to deal with them, depending. But you have to be kind of open your mind to see the different, because you cannot put all kids, all students in the same pack and treat them equal. Of course, you're going to treat everybody equal, but you have to respect the different qualities and skills of each one. That's what I'm trying to mean.
You're someone that's been competing for a very long time. You were winning world championships in the '90s. Do you watch the current jiu-jitsu scene? Do you have any athletes you like to follow in the modern era?
Yeah, I'm not watching like before, but this year going to awards. I every year I try to go to awards to watch the fights, to learn to see what's the new techniques that coming from the new generation, how they play. The last 2 years I couldn't go, but this year going again. So a lot of good fighters, the new generation. So it's I have been following them. Like the new generation. I kind of follow them. I'm not watching that much, like video. I like to watch more on the audience, kind of. And the same with UFC, and PFL or the MMA fights. I kind of, I'm not watching that much. I'm watching the best fights. I mean, the best matches, like some fighters that I follow, but I'm not watching everything. I'm not kind of guy that watch all videos, all tournaments, and not this way. To try to be updated, but the most I can. But I not focus in competitions, like be addicted to watch everything that is happening at the time.
Well, I know something else you do with your time. You're still surfing a lot. That's something we talked about last time you were on. How's the waves out in Rio lately? Have they been pretty good?
Man, unfortunately, not surfing the way I would like to do. So my task right now is taking my son to learn. You know, I I I help him, my son, to get into surf. Surf is an amazing sport. For me, jiu-jitsu is a way of life, but surfing is the funniest sport. Is the nicest. To be inside the water is just something amazing. To be able to slide over the surface of the water is kind of amazing sensation, feeling. And every weekend I have weekends to surf. So during the weekdays I'm working. So the weekends now, instead to go surfing, I take I take my son to learn. And I put in a school of a friend of mine, and I push him to learn surfing. He's very liking. I mean, he's liking surf. And I'm glad of that. That I can. I used to say to my son, man, I cannot teach you tennis player. I cannot teach you golf. I cannot teach you what else? Basketball, But I can teach you jiu-jitsu. I can teach you surf, Soccer we can play together. Our kids playing soccer in Brazil, and I'm not the best player, but I can play. So there's sports that I can do with you. So, and then if you learn to surf, I used to go a lot to Hawaii to surf. My son didn't surf at the time. Now he starts surfing. So, and I tell him, when you learn to surf, we can travel together to nice places to surf, like Bali or Hawaii, whatever. So, and it'd be a pleasure to be inside the water surfing with my kids. The most, I mean, because kids grow and then they fly, they have their own life. And sometimes parents, they don't have too much contact with their kids after they grow. They just fly and live their own life. So I'd like to have contact with my kid my whole life. So of course he have his family, his job, whatever. But jiu-jitsu is a connection that I'm making with him. Surf is gonna be another a connection that they're gonna connect us to get together. So it is a very nice sport. So now I'm more about to to push my kid to surf, and then later he's learning. I'm gonna surf. We're gonna surf together, But I'm not surfing the way I want, but I still surfing. I have my boards in home. I have boards in Hawaii, so I plan to go to Hawaii this year. So we'll see. That's a sport. Actually, I start surfing before training jiu-jitsu. So I used to be a surfer. Now I'm a fighter, but my hobby is surf still.
What a cool connection you have with your son then through and of the things you can teach your kids, I think that surfing and jiu-jitsu are probably the two coolest things. So I think he's not missing out by not learning basketball and other things like that. I think surfing and jiu-jitsu are probably the coolest. So yeah, that's really awesome. Surfing is something I really, really want to learn how to do myself. I was just in Nordeste for a week, and I was hoping to go to a surf school there, but we didn't have the time. So I'm going to have to try to learn here in Sao Paulo somewhere. I think there's actually a guy in the neighborhood here that teaches skateboarding. And I think he also takes people on the weekends out to like Santos or Guarujá to teach them how to surf. So I'm probably going to link up with him at some point, because I really do want to learn. Do you use do you prefer a shortboard or a longboard?
No, shortboard. I'm shortboard. I like maneuvers, I like maneuvers. So I'm old, but it's still, I can do some maneuvers too, So a longboard is nice, super nice, but it's more mellow. It's like more, I like more something that, I like the way I learn, but doesn't have age, man. If you go to school, you're going to learn. It's 100%. It doesn't matter the age, you're going to have fun, to be in the water surfing. It's awesome.
That's great. Are there a lot of sharks in Rio? Because that's the number one thing that always prevented me from learning to surf, is I'm very afraid of sharks.
Man, northeast, there is a city in the state is Pernambuco. The name is Recife, because they changed the environment there. There are a lot of sharks on the beach. They're the only place. I mean, sharks all over, right? Once you're in the water, sharks are there, especially in Hawaii, but it's easier to get hit by a car than bite by a shark, So at the beginning, I used to be very afraid inside the water, not in the beginning, not in Brazil, because Brazil, Rio doesn't have history of attacks. But going to Bali and Hawaii, I was very afraid of sharks. But man, you have to relax, So, and if it happens, it's gonna happen, It's gonna be so fast that maybe you won't feel. So I pray that they don't. I pray they don't appear. I don't like to get in contact with them, but once that I'm inside the water, it can happen.
I was just in Recife. I was just there last week, and I didn't go. No, there's no way. Yeah. For the listeners internationally out there, Recife is one of the shark attack capitals of the world. It's almost like guaranteed you'll get attacked if you get in the water there. In fact, they have signs like every 20 feet on the beach saying, "Do not go in the water at your own risk. Do not let your dog or children in the water." And it's like every 20 feet there's a sign explaining that. So definitely didn't go in the water.
People are still going.
They still do it. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I was talking to an Uber driver, and he was saying there was an attack like the week before because people were in the water and they were messing around. So yeah, we were actually in Porto de Galinhas, which is not too far from there, but there's like no shark activity there.
No, there are no shark. Well, more in I think is Boa Viagem, the beach Boa Viagem in Recife. The problem is there. They built a port in the place that the sharks used to go there to eat. So change the environment, and the sharks became to go to the beach. And I believe they got stuck in when the tide goes down. And they cannot, they got their no food, so they go to the beach looking for food. The people there are gonna become a prey. So
they were saying the water gets darker there too because of all the port activity. It's mostly tiger sharks, right? It's tiger sharks that are
they aggressive, So I won't go there for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, in fact, when I decided I was going to finally face my fears and learn how to surf in Sao Paulo, I did research. Okay, what are the safest beaches in Sao Paulo? Like what beaches have no shark history? No shark attacks. It turns out that almost all of Sao Paulo has almost no shark attacks at all. I think there's
really?
in 100 years, it's 9 attacks, and the last one was in the 30s or something. So
only Recife. Brazil doesn't have a history of shark attacks.
Yeah, so that gives me good confidence. I'm definitely gonna start learning how to surf. And when I see you and my instructor Damian Maya, he surfs a lot too now. He's doing the wave pool.
Actually. he went surfing the pool. I saw his picture. He was a friend of mine. I going soon to the pool. So first time on the pool, So it will be a nice experience.
Yeah, the pool's perfect. Then there's definitely no sharks, like no question.
Yeah,
no
I
shark, never
yeah.
have. Yeah, so now I'm definitely gonna learn though. Whenever I see pictures of yourself and Damien and other people I know surfing, I'm like, okay, I have to go do that. It looks so much fun. Professor, something new I've added to the show since you've been on. That I play a game with my guest every episode, halfway through the show. It's called the Pummel. The Pummel is a game of random questions. Some of these questions are about jiu-jitsu. Some of them have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. It's kind of like a lightning round. If you'd like to play this game, I'd love to play the Pummel game with you.
Let's go.
The first question: what do you think is the biggest animal that you could beat in hand-to-hand combat?
The biggest animal I could beat
in a fight. Yeah, with no weapons. Just your jiu-jitsu.
Oh my God, man. The biggest animal I could beat. I think about big animals now that couldn't beat. Might come like a bear, an elephant,
Yeah.
So a hippo, so I cannot beat them. So,
Yeah, no way, yeah.
Man, I don't know. It's hard to tell, I don't know, maybe a small monkey.
A monkey, okay, a small monkey.
A small monkey, yeah.
That's realistic. That's real. A small monkey is realistic. No, that's good. That's good. Sometimes people will say like gorilla, and I'm just like, there's no way, man. There's no way. There's no way. But small monkey, like a spider monkey. Okay, I can believe you. If you found a genie lamp and the regular genie rules apply, so you can't wish for more wishes and you can't kill anybody, what 3 wishes would you choose from the genie?
3 wishes, man. First, peace in the world. The world is crazy, man. Crazy, And, food for people. In the end, I think it is going to solve the problems, of the world. So, in the end, maybe some cash to help my... Then with the cash, I can help people, help myself. So
exactly. No, and hey, listen, if your first 2 wishes are give the world food and bring peace, you deserve some money for sure.
Yeah,
you earned it. You earned it by saving the world. Murilo, have you ever had a supernatural experience? Like, have you ever experienced like a ghost or seen a UFO or anything supernatural in your life?
No, unfortunately not, man. No, nothing like this happened to my life. Yeah, we'll see. Never know.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, you never know. You never know. If you surf more, you might see.
It's not that I don't believe. I believe I have life, outside Earth, but I didn't see anything yet.
Not yet. Well, let me know. Well, next time we talk, maybe we'll update for sure.
Yeah, maybe it's gonna happen.
Murilo, do you have any tattoos?
No tattoos.
No tattoos. Okay, cool. What do you think is the worst job that you ever had in your life?
Worst job that I had in my life.
You started fighting pretty young, right? So you didn't have a lot of jobs.
No, I used to work in the store selling clothes, but it wasn't that bad, It was okay. I never had a bad job thing. I'm a lucky guy. I can tell.
What do you think is a secret talent that you have? What's something that you're really good at that people might not know?
I can make a very good barbecue, maybe. The people, they don't know. Yeah, sure. Brazilian barbecue, I'm good. I can.
Nice.
Well,
I'm like a 3-stripe white belt in churrasco. I'm learning still. I finally we have a churrascaria in our apartment here. And I'm finally starting to learn how to use it after like 3 years of never touching it. I'm finally learning. So it's,
No, I'm still learning, but I can do a very good barbecue. So I have a barbecue place. I renew my house and make a balcony with the reason was to make a barbecue place. Yeah, the main reason to make a renewal was to make a barbecue place. And I make a barbecue place and then I have been practicing a lot. So make me develop my skills.
That's definitely a good skill to have, being able to cook and make food. What's something you wish you were better at? What's something, anything outside jiu-jitsu and martial arts that you wish you could do better?
Surfing.
Surfing, be even better at surfing. I imagine you're pretty good at this point. You've been surfing since before jiu-jitsu.
Oh man, surfing. I had to practice. I have been practicing surfing well for a long time. Only when I travel I can surf proper. But it's now I can tell that I kind of uh, regret. I mean, not regret, but I dropped my level. I mean, I
You
dropped my
regressed. You
level. I
regressed. Yeah.
regress. Yeah, I regress. Yeah.
What's your favorite bad food to eat?
My favorite bad foods.
Yeah, something that's not very healthy, but that you like to eat sometimes.
Oh, fries.
Fries, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. What kind of fries do you like? 'Cause there's lots of different kinds of fries. What are your favorite kinds of fries?
Oh, good fry, like a crispy. Must be crispy. Yeah, crispy, like
You like batata hustica?
Yes,
Like the
yes, I
real
like
thin.
batata rusca. I like the
Yeah.
portuguesa, the Portuguese that is like a Pringles. Like but any fried fries, well done is good. So it kind of I like fry stuff. Like there is a kind of some snacks, Brazilian snacks, pastel de queijo. I don't know how to say it in English. Like
Yeah, pastel is like for the listeners, it's like a fried breaded God, how would you explain that? It's dough and they fry it, but it's filled with different ingredients. So the one he likes is filled with cheese. Yeah.
Cheese, yeah, that's good. I like
those. Yeah, pastels. Yeah, for anyone listening, if you come to Brazil, pastel, they sell them on different corners and stuff. You can get them almost anywhere.
The typical snack, Brazilian.
Very
snack.
good comfort food for sure. Very good comfort food. Yeah. What do you think is your most hated food? What's something you cannot eat no matter what?
Guts.
Oh, intestines. Yeah.
Guts. Yeah, I don't like guts.
Guts.
And liver. I don't eat liver. So
no organs. You don't like organs.
Oh, no.
That's great. What do you think was the scariest moment in your life?
I have a scary moment during flight, going back from Japan. When I arrived at the airport, the airplane was in repair and the flight was canceled and it was waiting there. We're going to Tokyo to Los Angeles and the flight was canceled and all passengers were direction for different flights. And we were there waiting to decide what to do. And suddenly the flight was good to go. And we get in the flight was empty. And suddenly during the trip, the flight was shaking badly. It started to drop like wow.
Oh no.
And the attendance was kind of very scary. It was completely scared, like,
Oh.
And when you see the attendance, scary, man, then it gets scared.
Yeah, when the professionals are freaking out,
so
that's
the
not
professional
good.
freaking out, man, I was sick. And all my friends, Ricardo Arona was in the business at the time, and I was in the economy because Ricardo fought, and I was I work as a coach. So when going to Japan, and he was a different section, and then he come to our session because he was super afraid. It was very scary. Everybody got scary. So then suddenly the flight go back to stabilize it. And the captain went to the micro and apologized and said it was a turbulence, was a problem and blah, blah, blah. But we could arrive safe. But this was the hardest. After I never was afraid. I never was afraid. I never afraid of flight. For the airplanes. But after this time, I got a certain time, a period of time that was afraid. Then after that, I'm okay. Turbulence is an experiment.
That's a scary one. I'm glad that ended up okay. Yeah. There's they say that obviously like statistically flying is the most safe way to travel. But if you experience something like that, that can definitely shake your confidence. Yeah, for sure, man. Who do you think's your favorite MMA fighter of all time?
So Carson, my former coach, was for me was the best ever. He was one that teach me the way to follow. But from all times, there's João Alberto Barreto, that's an old jiu-jitsu player as well. Anderson was an amazing player, Fedor,
Yeah.
uh, many players, like, let me see. Nowadays, I like to watch Poatan, the monster,
Yeah. Yeah.
Khabib,
Khabib. Yeah.
very, very well-rounded, So I like to watch good fights, good players, brave guys. Minotauro was a very good fighter as well. So
It's a good list. Yeah, some of
yeah,
my favorites too. Yeah, very good
yeah.
choices. Yeah.
Of course, I'm is missing. I'm forgetting some names, but their names are solid.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's hard to remember all your names in the moment. Like it's funny whenever someone asks me like my top favorite people, I always feel like once I get home, I'm like, oh, I should have said this guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like in the moment, for some reason, I can't pull my list out. I don't know why. Who do you think's your favorite superhero?
Superhero. Wow. My favorite superhero. I like Batman. I like Superman, Batman. They are from my time.
Good ones. Good ones.
Yeah.
If you could have a superpower, what superpower would you want to have?
Superpower. Wow. To keep my body young.
Nice.
That's my superpower, to be able to do everything I want to do.
That's great.
Getting older, it's the old injuries start to bother, and you have to care more about the new injuries. So, we cannot play the way getting old, you cannot play the way you used to do. So you have to mold yourself, understand your body, playing safer. Whatever you're doing, you have to be safer. But it best you have to understand your body. You cannot play like this week a kid came to me. Oh, my arm is hurting, and I hurt, and I got an injury. I said, okay, let me see. Okay, tomorrow you're gonna be good. And the next class, it was okay. Yeah, how is your arm? Oh, nothing. That's it's heal like boom.
Yeah.
And getting old, if I hurt, if I hurt my arm, so it's gonna take longer for. So my best advice for the people that's still rolling sparring in the high age like me, have to care to don't get hurt. That's the most important. If you tap, if you win or lose, it's not the most important. The most important is to keep yourself safe, protect your body, because if you got hurt, for example, if you let your ego bother, you won't tap, you get hurt, and then you're going to stay longer off the mat.
Murilo, how old are you?
58.
Has your game changed a lot over once you got older than 40, or do you still play the same traditional game you've always played?
No, my game have been changing my whole life. I mean, my jiu-jitsu game, I do in positions I try to learn the most I can and bring to my game. Not everybody fit on my game because I have a very orthodox game, but and after retired in 2012, I became to train a lot of jiu-jitsu. Nowadays, I train more jiu-jitsu than slow gi. I mean jiu-jitsu with gi. And my game have been changing a lot. I have been studying a lot positions, so I have fun playing with the kind of lapel games, different. It's not from my old style to play, and I try to keep the most information possible. I even try to do my stuff that I used to do, bring more knowledge, and try to learn the right time to use the certain position, certain technique, to apply. So try to understand the game of the person that's sparring with me, what is easier to apply against them, So that's how I try to think. But I have been learning the most I can. My game changed a lot.
Murilo, final question for the Pummel game. If martial arts didn't exist, what do you think you do with your life instead?
I'll be a surfing economist. I'm graduating economy, so
Oh, right. Yeah, cool.
100%.
A surfing
100% of
economist.
it.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Surf will be my hobby, economy will be my job.
That's great. I love that. And Murilo, that was the final question for the Pummel game. Congratulations. You win. You got your double underhooks.
Okay.
So Murilo, I want to pick your brain a little bit on some technical jiu-jitsu discussion here. So what does old school jiu-jitsu mean to you? When you hear the term old school jiu-jitsu, what does that mean to you?
It's mean that you're concerned about the fundamentals, you're concerned about the positions that are faster to apply. You know, the result come faster. I mean, you don't have to settle that much. You have to set the position longer. You can apply it faster, and uh, it's more about fundamentals. So it's old school is about fundamentals, a press game, pressure, game with pressure. Like I made a video trying to explain that. Because what happens nowadays are the kids they don't concern. Like most of them, they play very loose. The games are very loose. They don't concern to kind of dominate the position, fight step by step to control the positions, not giving chance for the opponents. Most of the young fighters they play very loose, and playing loose, you cannot play loose when you're older. Because for this kind of game, you must have a lot of stamina, endurance. When getting older, your body change, your condition change. So the old school is about pressure, you gain the position step by step, fight for don't lose the position that you gain. It have been working very well and invited to the MMA fights. That's the way I play. So old school jiu-jitsu is the one that work very well in real situations. So in the MMA, you cannot. I don't see people applying a berimbolo or 50-50. You know, so kind of positions they don't pulling guard. Watch the fights nowadays. Both fighters pull guard, boom, and then no one to go to go up. They go both guys. Then the referee have to interfere. Come on, guys, put them standing again, and they pull guard again. So the old school, people want to take you down and smash you and pass your guard and knee on belly and choke you. So it's more aggressive, maybe in this kind of way. That's important for the real fights, like MMA fights. You must be aggressive. You cannot pull guard and playing like for a sweep. You must concern to be aggressive and take people down and control the fight. Don't give them space. So that's how I think about old school.
That's a great description. Yeah, I like that you touched on the fact that it's a little more closely tied to the roots of jiu-jitsu, which is through MMA and NHB and Vale Tudo. I think that also I like that you mentioned the efficiency. How there's in a lot of the old school techniques, there's not as many steps as there are in some of the more modern techniques. It's a little bit more practical. It's a little shorter to get to the destination. And I think that's a great way to look at it too. I also love the fact that you emphasize pressure and how for older practitioners, as we advance in age, that old school game becomes real reliable for people as they get older and as their speed and athleticism comes down a little bit. It's a great game to fall back on. Obviously a big part of that would be positional control and creating pressure. What are some of the key principles in your opinion to create crushing pressure on people from top?
Yes, how I try to explain to my students, I have to concern about one spot in the opponent body. and show your weight proper in the spot, you know. If I'm the half guard, I use my shoulder to squeeze the neck. Uh, if I'm self-control, I use my chest to squeeze in, but of course, come from the hips, a lot from the hips, how you play your hips to make yourself heavier, you know. So your hips must be in the, because if your hips too high, you don't, you'll be lighter, so the hips must work a little below, to show the pressure. Knees off the mat helps a lot, so then it's choose a spot and you throw all your weight to the spot. But if depending of the position are, sometimes you're passing guard, you throw your weight on the hips to avoid that, opponent escape the hips. If in the half guard, you throw your weight on his neck to avoid that his move, and try to choke with your shoulder. But same time, you have to be with the knees off the mat, throwing your weight to the point that you want. So from my foot, from my feet to my shoulder, all my weight go through to be, put it in one spot. So, side control, if my knees on the mat, I divide my weight, with the body and the mat. If I'm mounting, I kind of doing a mounting nowadays that I use my knees off the mat and all my hips, throwing my weight on the solar plex of the opponent, make it harder for them to breathe. And I barely touch the mat with my hands. So just to keep the balance, but all my weight will be on the belly and the solar plex, throwing my weight on them. So, realizing that you are able to use better your weight. I used to say that from the top, you must, the best from the top is the one that know how to use his own weight to make yourself heavier, you know. And from the bottom, hips, from the bottom, you have to move your hips faster. The one that move the hips faster from the bottom is able to connect position easier. From the top, you squeeze. From the bottom, you'll be fast, So, but you have to know how to squeeze proper. So they have to deal with your hips and your body and knees off the mat. So kind of this stuff.
That's great. I actually love that you touched on that, because I think another common frustration you hear from students, especially for someone smaller, training with someone bigger than them, is that it can be hard to maintain mount position if the other person's bigger and stronger. So what you just described, that obviously works really well for smaller people against a larger person. If you're focused on keeping the pressure on the gut with your hips, rather than being sprawled too much out on the mats and having too much of your base distributed across the mat. Is that something you emphasize for smaller people too, against larger people?
Yeah, it's about, it's for everyone. I used to train with guys smaller than me, but they have like, I used to call them midget with the strength of a big guy, So, because they play so tight, coming from my background, they doing so tight, you cannot let them gain some certain position because you couldn't escape. Have to wait for them to move, then maybe you have a gap to escape. It doesn't matter the size, it's more a matter the way they put the pressure, the way they control. So from the top, but for everyone can play tight and can play like heavy from the top. Just have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that a lot of students might feel frustration with is that they do a good job in the role. Like they pass guard, they get to side control, they advance to mount. But then once they get to mount, sometimes they feel like their attacks can be a little bit limited. If the guy's defending well and keeping things tight, it can be hard to get people to open up, especially in no-gi when you don't have a collar to threaten. What are some of your favorite strategies to attack from mount, particularly in no-gi when someone doesn't have a collar to attack?
So mount from no-gi, a bit more about arm bars, triangles, uh, chokes from the top, some chokes, but not that much. Doesn't have the collar, So I have to like embrace and work from the top to hurt the neck. Uh, but with gi, I go chokes, collar, straight, boom, in front collar, or gonna choke, or gonna give me the opportunity to change the position for armbar, start to open the way, you know. So if you know how to work proper from the top, doesn't matter how is defense, how's the defense of the opponent, but you can start to working proper on the collar, and then or you're gonna be able to choke straight, or you're gonna have a way to follow to catch a arm bar.
Yeah, obviously in the gi, that collar grip really is just a magic key, isn't it? It really does open everything because the guy
Yes.
has to address it, and in order to
Yeah.
address it, if he's staying here, he has to come up with the elbows, which creates the space to start isolating arms. So, yeah, that's I appreciate you sharing your insight on that because I think that for some people when they don't have a collar or if they're still learning and they don't know how to use the collar yet, hearing these strategies from someone experienced is really valuable. So I appreciate it. Guys, if this is an aspect of your game you're looking to work on, if you're trying to improve your fundamentals, whether you're a beginning player or if you're someone that's more advanced in age, the old school game that Murilo's describing here is something that everyone should really have a deep understanding of, whatever your level in jiu-jitsu is. He's got a great instructional with us called Old School Crushing Pressure and Submissions. It's actually one of our best sellers on the website of all the instructionals we have. This one's one of the very top sellers. It's available right now at bjjfanatics.com. So go check it out. Again, it's Old School Crushing Pressure and Submissions by Murilo Bustamante. Murilo, in closing, what are some of your big goals for 2025? What are some things that you hope to accomplish this year?
I'm working to improve my methodology, and for my team. So I'm working to improve my management of my team to help my students to have more success in the academies. My goal is to be a better helper to my affiliates, and a better coach for my students. So I kind of I'm traveling uh, after the Worlds this year. I'm going to visit some academies in East Coast. Last April, I went to West Coast in the center. I went to California, Oregon, Illinois, Colorado, and Texas, visiting Brazilian top team academies. June, I'm going to uh, Boston, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Florida, Boca Raton, and Orlando. Visit some Brazilian top team schools with some of my friends at academies as well. Like I'm gonna meet guys like Ricardo Liboro, that's my former partner and my brother from another mother. Márcio Pimentel, that's the same, like two of my best friends that live in Orlando. I'm gonna teach the Inger academies there. And, we're going to teach in Brazilian top team Boca Raton, Brazilian top team Boston, Brazilian top team Charlotte. I have 5 seminars in the way. So I try to visit the most I can the Brazilian top team schools to help them to give them the direction. Because one of the most important assets that I have on my team, on my academy, is the environment. So building a very safe and nice environment, students are going to be very comfortable. They're going to find a place, they're going to have fun. They're going to feel safe to bring their families. They're going to make friendship. They're going to make a bigger network. They're going to make a very place that they're going to want to be, inside. So, and then it comes from the coach. I mean, The environment must be competitive, but the competition must be a limit, you know. So of course, uh, I want that people train hard. I want that people beat each other, but in the end, we're gonna help each other. You know, it's not about just to win every time. It's about to be a team that's gonna help each other. You know that you're gonna help your partners. You're gonna care about your partners. If there's somebody doing something wrong, it's the task for us, more graduate students to help them, correct them. You know, if because the way I behave. If I submit a student of mine, he made a mistake, I stop after right after that and I teach him. Exactly. And maybe it's gonna make my life harder next time I spar him with them. But in the other way, it's gonna help me to develop my game. Because knowing my game, it's gonna be harder for me to play, but I have to develop different skills, you know? And sometimes people can help me as well. Like you're doing this, doing that, change a little bit, you know. So it's important to work together, but it's a safe environment that people trust each other, you know, because you need your team to be, you know, a champion. So your team that's gonna push you to the top. I believe that, you know, the environment is very important. It must be a trustable environment. And I travel around to Brazilian Top Team Academies teaching jiu-jitsu. It teaches them how to build a safe academy, like how to build a good environment and to make sure that they understand that our mission is not only at the beginning, my mission was the beginning of Brazilian Top Team, my mission was just to build champions. I just concerned about to build champions. Nowadays I change, you know, my understanding about martial arts. I help people to be a better human being using jiu-jitsu to help their own lives. That's my mission, you know. So during this process, sometimes gonna help them. Champions gonna, you know, gonna appear. But it's not about to create a, you know, uh, create a team of only champions, you know, because people nowadays they don't care about values, you know. So people they cheat, they took a steroid, and they go back to academy to teach ethical for their students. Weird, right? So you cheat, go to competition, took steroids, and cheating, and then you go back to academy. You want to teach values, teach ethical. It doesn't fit, you know. So you must be aware of what you're doing, you know. So, and I try to, you know, to pass my way to understand jiu-jitsu to my affiliates, you know, and help them to build their business, you know, and the methodology. So that's my biggest task right now.
That's excellent. Well, like I said earlier, I really do appreciate you being at the forefront, leading to make the art better and better, and helping the new generation, and also helping the school owners that you interact with around the world to make their environments better and better and more inviting and more beneficial to the students. So that's really outstanding. I appreciate your time here today, and I appreciate you doing all the work that you do. It's really outstanding.
Thank you, Ryan.
Of course,
pleasure to be here, my friend.
Murilo, also, you got to let me know when you're in Sao Paulo again. I have something I want to show you. Hang on 1 second. I got a hold of something. It's something I keep on the wall in the studio here. It's a collector item, but I got a hold of this. It's from I think it's from the 90s. It's an old
Wow,
tatami.
It was my third event.
Yeah.
I mean, my second professional fight. It was against Joe Charles. It was in Rio, June 1996. June 24th, 1996. It's still good in numbers.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got a hold of this, and I'd be honored to have you sign it for me. So I'd love to have you sign the front. So let me know next time you're in town. We'll get together, whether you're here for BJJ Stars or something else. Lunch is on me. Lunch is on me if you sign this magazine.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
My pleasure.
Of course. Well, folks, unfortunately, we're fresh out of time. Murilo, it's been 9 years. Hopefully the next interview, we won't wait that long. It's great catching up with you. I appreciate you being here and always being so generous with your knowledge. You're welcome back on the show anytime you'd like to come back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My pleasure. Always nice to talk to you, Ryan.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. For anyone out there that wants to keep up with Murilo, it's really easy to do so. He's active on Facebook. He's also active on Instagram. His Instagram is Murilo Busta. YouTube, he has a YouTube channel. He's not super active with it, but go sign up and subscribe. Just type in his name on YouTube and I'm sure you'll find his channel. His website is BrazilianTopTeam.net. If you guys are ever traveling through Rio de Janeiro, he's got one of the top schools in the entire country. So if you're in Rio, drop in, get some training. He's got a very welcoming, cool environment. You'll have a great time. If you can't make it to Rio de Janeiro, you can learn from Murilo anywhere in the world here at BJJFanatics.com. He has an instructional we discussed in depth today called Old School Crushing Pressure and Submissions, and it's available right now on our website. Also, guys, for people in the U.S. on the East Coast, another reason, if you can't make it to Rio, you can still learn from him. Actually, this week that the episode is coming out, you can learn from him on the East Coast of the United States. He's going to be in Boston, Charlotte, Boca Raton, Florida, and Orlando. Professor, did I get them all right?
Yes. Orlando,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So if you guys are on the East Coast, the week that this episode goes out, he will be in the States. So get in on one of those seminars. And guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.